The stale antiseptic smell hit me first. Then the beeping, rhythmic, mechanical, unfeeling. My eyelids felt weighted, and I struggled to pry them open as consciousness crawled back into my body. White ceiling tiles came into focus, followed by the sensation of crisp sheets against my skin. Hospital. I was in a hospital. My throat felt like sandpaper as I tried to swallow. A dull ache radiated from my abdomen, and instinctively, my hand drifted down to rest on my stomach. Flat, empty. The realization hit me like a physical blow. My baby. Where was my baby? I jolted upright, ignoring the sharp pain that tore through my midsection. The room spun, and I gripped the metal railings of the hospital bed to steady myself. "Miss Harper, please lie back down." A nurse in light blue scrubs appeared at my bedside, her expression a practiced blend of concern and authority. "You've had a cesarean section. You need to be careful." "My baby," I croaked, my voice barely recognizable. "Where's my baby?" Her face softened. "Your daughter is fine. She's in the nursery. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfectly healthy." Daughter. I had a daughter. Relief flooded through me, and I sank back into the pillows, tears stinging my eyes. "When can I see her?" I whispered. "Soon. The doctor needs to check on you first, and then we'll bring her in." The nurse adjusted my IV. "You gave us quite a scare, Miss Harper. You lost a lot of blood during delivery." I nodded absently, my mind struggling to piece together memories. The contractions starting 2 weeks early. The cab ride to the hospital. Alone. The panic when the doctor said something was wrong. Then nothing but darkness. "Is there someone we should call for you?" the nurse asked, her voice gentler now. I shook my head. There was no one. Not since Jake had walked out 4 months ago when I'd told him about the pregnancy. Not since I'd quit my waitressing job when my ankles swelled too much to stand for 8-hour shifts. Not since I'd fallen behind on rent and had to give up my apartment, moving into a women's shelter until the baby came. "Just me," I said, forcing a smile that felt brittle on my lips. The nurse gave my hand a quick squeeze. "The doctor will be in shortly." After she left, I closed my eyes, trying to center myself. I'd done it. I'd brought a life into this world. Now I just had to figure out how to take care of her with no money, no home, and no support system. The weight of responsibility pressed down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. My phone. Where was my phone? I needed to call the shelter, let them know what happened. I scanned the room and spotted my belongings in a clear plastic bag on a nearby chair. With effort, I reached for it, wincing as the movement pulled at my stitches. Inside the bag were the clothes I'd been wearing when I arrived, maternity leggings and an oversized sweater, along with my phone and wallet. The phone was dead. Of course it was. I plugged it into a charger by the bedside and waited for it to power on. When the screen finally lit up, a cascade of notifications appeared. Missed calls, voicemails, and dozens of text messages from a number I didn't recognize. My stomach knotted with confusion as I opened the message thread. The first message I'd sent read, "Jake, I know you said you're done, but I'm at St. Mary's Hospital. Something's wrong with the baby. Please, I need you." But I hadn't sent it to Jake. In my panicked state, I must have misdialed. The message had gone to someone else entirely. The responses made my blood run cold. "Who is this? How did you get this number? Answer me. What hospital did you say? I'm coming there now. Don't move." The timestamp on the last message was from 10 hours ago. My heart hammered against my ribs. Who had I accidentally texted, and why would they come to the hospital? I scrolled back through my contacts, trying to figure out whose number it might be, when the door to my room swung open. The doctor, I assumed. But the man who entered wasn't wearing a white coat. He was dressed entirely in black, an impeccably tailored suit that accentuated broad shoulders and a lean frame. His dark hair was swept back from a face that belonged in a fashion magazine. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, and eyes so intensely blue they seemed to glow against his olive skin. He was younger than I expected, probably early 30s, and devastatingly handsome, but it was the way he moved that made my breath catch, fluid and controlled, like a predator. 2 men in similar suits flanked the doorway behind him, their postures alert and watchful. Those blue eyes locked onto mine, and something passed across his face. Relief? Recognition? I couldn't tell. "You're awake," he said, his voice deep and accented. Italian, maybe. He approached the bed with measured steps. I pressed myself back against the pillows. "Who are you?" A flicker of amusement crossed his features. "You texted me, remember?" He pulled out his phone and showed me the screen with my desperate message. "You were calling me Jake. I'm sorry," I stammered. I wasn't thinking clearly. I meant to text someone else, clearly. His gaze traveled over my face, taking in every detail. "Where is he? This Jake? He's not involved anymore." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "The father of your child abandoned you?" I looked away, shame burning my cheeks. "It's complicated. It seems very simple to me." He moved closer, and I caught his scent. Expensive cologne with notes of cedar and something darker underneath. "What's your name?" "Emma," I whispered. "Emma Harper." "Emma." He said my name slowly, as if tasting it. "I'm Alessandro Russo." The name hit me like a physical blow. Everyone in the city knew that name. It was whispered in corners of restaurants, mentioned in hushed tones on the news. Alessandro Russo, head of the most powerful crime family on the East Coast, and I had accidentally texted him during my emergency. My mouth went dry. "Mr. Russo, I'm so sorry for the confusion." "I didn't mean—" "Your daughter is beautiful," he interrupted, as if I hadn't spoken. "Perfect, actually." I froze. You've seen her?" A slight smile curved his lips. "I've been here all night, Emma. Who do you think paid for the private room? The specialists? The blood transfusion that saved your life?" The room seemed to tilt beneath me. "But why would you do that? You don't know me." He moved to the window, looking out at the city below. "Let's call it fate that your message came to me. I was meant to be here." Before I could respond, a nurse entered pushing a small clear bassinet. My heart leaped into my throat as I caught sight of the tiny bundle inside. "Time to meet your daughter," the nurse said cheerfully, oblivious to the tension in the room. She lifted the swaddled infant and placed her in my arms with practiced ease. The world disappeared as I looked down at my daughter's face for the first time. Pink cheeks, button nose, rosebud lips. A wisp of dark hair peeked out from beneath a tiny knitted cap. Her eyes were closed, long lashes resting against perfect skin. "Hello, little one," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I'm your mom." She squirmed slightly, her tiny fist escaping the blanket. I touched her perfect fingers, marveling at their miniature perfection. Nothing had prepared me for this rush of love, so fierce it took my breath away. Alessandro moved to the bedside, his eyes fixed on the baby. Something in his expression had changed, softened somehow, though no less intense. "She needs a name," he said quietly. "I was thinking of Lily," I replied, unable to take my eyes off her. "Liliana," Alessandro corrected. "It means lily in Italian." I looked up at him, puzzled by his presumption. "I haven't decided yet." His expression was unreadable. "Check her bracelet." Frowning, I glanced down at the tiny identification band around my daughter's wrist. My heart stopped. "Baby girl Russo." I looked up sharply. "What is this? Why does it say Russo?" Alessandro's expression remained calm. "When they asked for a name, I gave mine. You were unconscious, fighting for your life. Someone needed to take responsibility. But she's not. You're not." I struggled to find words through my shock. "You can't just claim someone else's child." "I've claimed nothing that wasn't abandoned," he replied, his voice hardening slightly. "The father left you both. You have no home, no money, no family. I checked." A chill ran through me. "You investigated me? I protect what's mine." "She's not yours." I clutched Lily closer, wincing at the pain the sudden movement caused. Alessandro watched me with those unnervingly perceptive eyes. "Where will you go when they discharge you?" "The women's shelter doesn't allow infants past 2 weeks old. You have $87 in your bank account. No job. No family to help." Each word landed like a blow, the truth I'd been avoiding for months laid bare by a stranger. "That's not your concern," I said, but my voice wavered. It became my concern the moment your message appeared on my phone. He reached out and gently touched Lily's cheek with one finger. The tenderness of the gesture contrasted sharply with the steel in his voice. I don't believe in coincidences, Emma. You reached out to me for a reason. It was a mistake, I insisted. There are no mistakes, only fate. He straightened, adjusting the cuffs of his immaculate shirt. You and Liliana will be coming home with me when you're discharged. I gaped at him. Are you insane? I don't know you. I'm not going anywhere with you. A slight smile played at the corner of his mouth, but it didn't reach his eyes. It wasn't a request, Emma. You have nothing. I have everything. Liliana deserves more than a homeless shelter for her first days of life. You can't force me to... I'm not forcing anything. I'm offering you a choice. His voice was dangerously soft. Accept my help. Give your daughter the life she deserves, or struggle alone. Pride is a luxury you can't afford right now. The brutal truth of his words hit me hard. What could I offer Lily? A spot on a shelter cot? Formula measured out to the last ounce because I couldn't afford to waste a drop? Alessandro reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, placing it on the bedside table. Think about it. I'll return tomorrow. He leaned down and, to my shock, pressed a gentle kiss to Lily's forehead. Then he straightened, his gaze capturing mine once more. She has your eyes, he said quietly. Beautiful. Without another word, he turned and left the room, his two silent guards following in his wake. The door closed behind them, but his presence seemed to linger, like a shadow that wouldn't fade with the light. I looked down at my daughter's peaceful face, then at the bracelet that proclaimed her a Russo. How had my life unraveled so completely? How had a misdirected text message led to this moment, with a notorious crime boss claiming some sort of ownership over my child? And why, despite every instinct screaming danger, did a part of me feel relieved that someone, anyone, was offering help when I needed it most desperately? Lily stirred in my arms, her tiny face scrunching before relaxing again into sleep. I touched the plastic hospital bracelet on her wrist, tracing the letters of a surname that wasn't hers, wasn't mine, yet. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of nurse visits, feeding attempts, and fitful sleep interrupted by Lily's hungry cries. Each time the door opened, I expected to see Alessandro's imposing figure, but he didn't return. Only his business card remained on the nightstand, heavy cream cardstock with just his name, and a phone number embossed in black. I found myself staring at it during the long night hours, turning it over and over between my fingers. By morning, the reality of my situation had crystallized with brutal clarity. The social worker who visited confirmed everything Alessandro had said. The shelter's 2-week policy for newborns, the waiting list for transitional housing, the insufficient support from social services. Her pitying smile as she handed me pamphlets on public assistance felt like sandpaper against my already raw nerves. Do you have any friends or family who could help? She asked, clipboard ready. I shook my head. My parents had died in a car accident when I was in college. No siblings. The few friends I'd had drifted away during my pregnancy, uncomfortable with my circumstances or simply busy with their own lives. Jake had been my world for the 3 years we were together, and when he left, he took my social circle with him. What about the baby's father? She pressed. Not in the picture, I replied, the words bitter on my tongue. Jake's final text played on repeat in my mind. I never signed up for this. I'm not ready to be a father. Don't contact me again. The social worker made a note. Well, there are some emergency options we can explore, but I have to be honest. The system is overwhelmed. It could be months before something stable becomes available. After she left, I held Lily against my chest, breathing in her sweet newborn scent as tears slid silently down my cheeks. What kind of mother couldn't provide even the most basic security for her child? The doctor came by that afternoon to check my incision and discuss discharge plans for the following day. You're healing well, she said, making notes in my chart. Any questions about postpartum care? I had 1,000 questions, but only one that mattered. What happens if I have nowhere to go? She looked up, her expression carefully neutral. The hospital can't keep you beyond medical necessity. But I understand Mr. Russo has made arrangements? My head snapped up. What arrangements? He's covered all your medical expenses and indicated he would be handling your discharge. His assistant came by earlier to confirm. She must have seen the alarm on my face because she added, "Is that not the case?" Before I could answer, a light knock sounded at the door, and a tall woman with a sleek black bob and designer clothes entered. Everything about her screamed efficiency, from her posture to her sharp gaze that assessed me in one quick sweep. "Miss Harper? I'm Valentina Ricci, Mr. Russo's personal assistant." Her accent was similar to Alessandro's, but more pronounced. "I've come to discuss tomorrow's arrangements and bring you these." She set a glossy shopping bag on the bed. The doctor excused herself as Valentina pulled out what appeared to be new clothes. A soft gray sweater dress, leggings, and a plush cardigan, all with the tags still attached. She added a package of high-end maternity underwear, nursing bras, and a toiletry kit containing products that probably cost more than a month's rent at my old apartment. "Mr. Russo thought you might need these for discharge," she said, her tone matter-of-fact. "The car will be here at 11 tomorrow morning. The townhouse has been prepared for you and the baby." I stared at her. "I haven't agreed to go anywhere." Valentina's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched slightly. "Do you have alternative arrangements?" The question hung in the air between us. We both knew the answer. "Why is he doing this?" I asked instead. "I'm nobody to him." Something flickered across Valentina's face. Surprise, perhaps, or curiosity. "Mr. Russo has his reasons. It's not my place to question them." She placed a new smartphone on the table. "This is for you. Mr. Russo's number is programmed in. Call if you need anything before tomorrow." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth, Miss Harper, I've worked for Mr. Russo for 8 years. He's a complicated man, but his protection is absolute." After she left, I examined the clothes, running my fingers over fabrics finer than anything I'd ever owned. The phone was the latest model, already activated and charged. I picked it up, scrolling through the contacts. Only one entry. Alessandro Russo. My finger hovered over the call button. What would I even say? Thank you for the charity? No thanks. I'd rather struggle alone. Please explain why you've taken such an interest in me and my daughter. Instead, I set the phone down and cradled Lily, who had begun to fuss. As I fumbled to position her for feeding, the hospital room's limitations became painfully apparent. No comfortable chair, nowhere to rest my still tender body, as I tried to soothe my increasingly frustrated daughter. "It's okay, baby girl," I murmured. Though we both knew it wasn't. Nothing about this situation was okay. Night fell, and with it came the crushing weight of decision. Stay and face certain hardship, or go with a dangerous man who, for reasons I couldn't fathom, seemed determined to provide for us. Pride warred with practicality. Fear battled with desperate need. I dozed fitfully between Lily's feedings, dreaming of blue eyes and shadowy figures. When dawn broke, I had made my decision. For Lily, I would swallow my pride. For Lily, I would accept help, even from the most unlikely source. But I would maintain boundaries. This would be temporary, just until I could get back on my feet. At precisely 11 the next morning, as I finished dressing in the clothes Valentina had brought, there was a knock at the door. I expected Alessandro's assistant again, but it was the man himself who entered, looking even more imposing in daylight. Today's suit was charcoal gray, his presence filling the small room instantly. His eyes found mine first, then moved to Lily, who was sleeping in the plastic hospital bassinet. Something in his expression softened almost imperceptibly. "You're ready?" he asked, though it wasn't really a question. I nodded, unable to find words as the reality of what I was doing hit me. "The car is waiting." He moved to the bassinet and, with unexpected gentleness, lifted Lily into his arms. She looked impossibly tiny against his broad chest, her dark hair a stark contrast to his crisp white shirt. He cradled her with the confidence of someone who had held babies before, supporting her head perfectly. "You've done this before," I said, surprised. A shadow crossed his face. "I have a younger sister." There was a significant age difference. It was the first personal detail he'd shared, and it momentarily threw me. I hadn't thought of him as having a family, having been anything other than the powerful, dangerous man he clearly was now. Alessandro called for a nurse, who appeared with discharge paperwork and a wheelchair. Hospital policy for new mothers. As I settled into it with a wince, still sore from the surgery, Alessandro handed Lily back to me. His fingers brushed mine in the exchange, warm and unexpectedly calloused. The journey through the hospital corridors was surreal. Alessandro walked beside the wheelchair, his presence creating a bubble of space around us as people instinctively moved out of his way. The two silent guards from yesterday appeared at the hospital exit, flanking a gleaming black SUV with tinted windows. One opened the back door, revealing a top-of-the-line infant car seat already installed. Alessandro took Lily from me again as one of the men helped me into the vehicle. The interior was luxurious. Soft leather seats, privacy partition, even a small refrigerator stocked with water and juice. Alessandro settled Lily into the car seat with surprising expertise, checking the straps twice before taking the seat beside me. The doors closed with a solid thunk that felt oddly final. "Where exactly are we going?" I asked as the car pulled smoothly away from the curb. "My townhouse in Beacon Hill," Alessandro replied. "It's secure, private, and has everything you and Liliana will need." I bristled slightly at his use of the full name I hadn't agreed to. "Her name is Lily." His eyes met mine, unreadable. "Liliana is a strong name. She'll grow into it." I wanted to argue, but exhaustion pulled at me, the events of the past days catching up all at once. Instead, I turned to look out the window as familiar city streets gave way to increasingly affluent neighborhoods. Finally, the car slowed in front of a stunning brick townhouse, 4 stories of historic architecture, updated with modern security features I could spot even from the street. Cameras, reinforced windows, a discreet but obvious security panel by the front door. The driver opened my door while another man, not one of the guards from the hospital, but similarly dressed, opened the front door of the house. Alessandro carried Lily inside, leaving me to follow on still unsteady legs. The interior was a perfect blend of historic charm and modern luxury. Crown molding and hardwood floors alongside sleek furniture and state-of-the-art technology. Alessandro led me through a formal sitting room to a more comfortable living area, where he gently placed Lily, still asleep in her car seat, on a coffee table. "Would you like to see your rooms?" he asked. I nodded, suddenly overwhelmed by the opulence surrounding me. This house probably cost more than I would earn in several lifetimes. Alessandro led me up a graceful staircase to the second floor, opening double doors to reveal what could only be described as a suite, a spacious bedroom with a king-sized bed, open to a sitting area, and a bathroom larger than my entire former apartment. But what made my breath catch was the adjoining room, a fully equipped nursery in soft shades of cream and pale green. A hand-carved wooden crib stood beneath a crystal chandelier, while a plush rocking chair waited by windows overlooking a small garden. A changing table held neatly stacked diapers and baby clothes, more than Lily could wear in her first months of life. When did you... I couldn't form a complete thought as I took in the meticulous preparation. "I have resources," Alessandro said simply. He opened a closet door to reveal women's clothing, dresses, pants, tops, all in what appeared to be my size. "Valentina arranged these based on your measurements from the hospital. If anything doesn't fit or isn't to your taste, she can exchange it." I ran my fingers over a silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly food budget. "This is too much. I can't accept all this. You can, and you will." His tone brooked no argument. "Your comfort and Liliana's needs are now my concern." I turned to face him directly. "Why? You still haven't explained why you're doing all this." Alessandro was silent for a long moment, studying me with those piercing blue eyes. "Let's just say I recognize an opportunity when I see it." "An opportunity for what?" I pressed. "To right a wrong." He glanced toward the window, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. "The father of your child abandoned his responsibilities. I find that unacceptable." There was something in his voice, a cold fury carefully controlled, that made me shiver despite the room's comfortable temperature. "So this is... what? Some kind of moral crusade for you?" I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. A slight smile curved his lips, though it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm not known for my morality, Emma." Then what is it? Because men like you don't do charity cases without expecting something in return. His expression darkened. Men like me? I swallowed hard but stood my ground. Powerful men, dangerous men. You know who I am. It wasn't a question. Everyone knows who Alessandro Russo is, I said quietly. He moved closer and I had to fight the urge to step back. And yet you came with me willingly. For Lily, I clarified, because she deserves better than what I could give her right now. A mother's sacrifice, he murmured. Something like approval in his tone, noble, but unnecessary. I'm not asking for anything in return, Emma. Consider it a debt paid forward. Before I could question him further, a cry echoed from downstairs. Lily awakening, hungry and disoriented in strange surroundings. I moved instinctively toward the door, but Alessandro placed a hand on my arm, stopping me. There are some ground rules, he said, his voice low and serious. You will stay within the house unless accompanied by me or my security team. The doors and windows are alarmed. Your phone is monitored. These measures are for your protection. Protection from what? I asked, alarm rising in my throat. I have enemies, he said simply. By accepting my help, you've potentially made yourself a target. I won't take chances with your safety or Liliana's. Another cry from Lily, more insistent this time. So we're prisoners here, I stated flatly. Alessandro's expression hardened. You're guests under my protection. There's a difference. But as I brushed past him to tend to my daughter, the distinction felt academic at best. I had traded one form of vulnerability for another, exchanged desperation for dependence. What I couldn't yet determine was whether I'd made a terrible mistake. Days blended into one another in Alessandro's townhouse. Despite the luxury surrounding us, I existed in a state of limbo, safe but confined, cared for but controlled. Each morning, I awoke to fresh flowers on the nightstand, and the sounds of Lily's gentle breathing from the bassinet I'd insisted on keeping beside my bed instead of using the nursery. A week passed, then 2. My body healed, the surgical scar fading from angry red to pink as I settled into the strange rhythm of this new life. Motherhood consumed me, feeding schedules, diaper changes, brief moments of sleep snatched between Lily's needs. Through it all, Alessandro remained a shadowy presence, coming and going at odd hours, sometimes absent for days, other times appearing unexpectedly in the doorway of the nursery, while I rocked Lily to sleep. He never touched me, maintaining a careful distance that somehow felt more intimate than contact. But his eyes followed my movements, studying me when he thought I wouldn't notice. And with Lily, he showed a tenderness that continually caught me off guard, the way he'd hold her with such careful precision, speaking to her in soft Italian phrases I couldn't understand. On the rare occasions we shared meals, always brought in by a private chef who prepared the food and then discreetly disappeared, conversation remained superficial. Alessandro asked about Lily's development, my comfort, whether I needed anything. I asked nothing in return, afraid of the answers I might receive. It was during one such dinner, nearly 3 weeks after we'd arrived, that something shifted. Lily was asleep upstairs, monitored by a state-of-the-art system that relayed every sound and movement to Alessandro's phone. I had managed to shower and change into one of the countless outfits that filled my closet, a simple navy dress that probably cost more than a month's rent at my old apartment. Alessandro looked up as I entered the dining room, his expression unreadable as always. He stood until I took my seat, a gesture of old-world courtesy that felt incongruous with everything I knew about him. You look well, he said, his gaze lingering on my face. The color has returned to your cheeks. I nodded, reaching for the glass of water beside my plate. I'm feeling stronger. Good. He gestured to one of his ever-present guards, who poured wine into Alessandro's glass before retreating to the perimeter of the room. You've adjusted to motherhood admirably. I haven't had much choice, I replied, unable to keep a hint of bitterness from my voice. Alessandro studied me for a long moment. You resent being here. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. I'm grateful for the help with Lily. But yes, I resent being a prisoner. A gilded cage is still a cage, he murmured, as if quoting something. What would you do, Emma, if you could leave? Where would you go? The question caught me off guard. I'd thought about little else during my sleepless nights, but had never formulated a concrete plan. I'd get a job, find an apartment, build a life for Lily and me. With what resources? I stiffened at his dismissive tone. I managed before. Did you? From what I understand, you were living in a shelter when you went into labor. Your bank account was overdrawn. The father of your child had abandoned you. His voice remained calm, almost gentle, but each word cut like a blade. How exactly were you managing? Anger flared in my chest, hot and sudden. You've made your point. I'm helpless, dependent on your charity. Is that what you want to hear? What I want, Alessandro said, setting down his wine glass with deliberate precision, is for you to see reality clearly. Your pride, admirable as it may be, won't feed Liliana or put a roof over her head. And you will? I challenged. For how long? A month? A year? Until you grow bored of your little charity project? Something dangerous flashed in his eyes, gone so quickly I might have imagined it. You're not a charity project, Emma. Then what am I? Why am I here? Alessandro was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on some point beyond my shoulder. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter. When I was 10 years old, my father took me to see a man who had failed to repay a debt. Do you know what we found? The abrupt change of subject startled me. I shook my head. A broken door, an empty apartment, and a note explaining that he couldn't face the consequences, so he'd left his wife and infant daughter to deal with them instead. Alessandro's expression hardened. My father was furious, but what stayed with me was the woman's face when she realized her husband had abandoned her to face my father alone. My chest tightened. What happened to her? My father was a brutal man, but he had one principle. Women and children were not to be harmed. Alessandro's lips curved in a mirthless smile. He forgave the debt, arranged for the woman to return to her family in Sicily, said a man who would abandon his child deserved to lose everything. I struggled to understand the connection. Is that why I'm here? Because of something your father taught you? You're here because the moment I saw you in that hospital bed, exhausted and alone with a child whose father had abandoned you both, something shifted. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Call it conscience if you believe I have one. Everyone has a conscience, I said quietly. His smile was razor sharp. You're very naive, Emma. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. Alessandro checked the screen, his expression instantly hardening. He stood, straightening his jacket with a practiced motion. I need to go. There's a situation that requires my attention. He paused, then added, Don't wait up. I never do, I replied, the words coming out more wistfully than I'd intended. Alessandro studied me for a moment longer, something unreadable in his gaze. Then he was gone. The quiet click of the front door, the only evidence he'd been there at all. Left alone, I wandered through the house, a luxury prison I still hadn't fully explored. The ground floor contained the formal rooms, living room, dining room, study. The second floor held our bedrooms and the nursery. The third floor remained a mystery, its door always locked. I paused at the foot of the stairs leading to that forbidden floor, my hand on the polished banister. What secrets did Alessandro keep there? The darker side of his business, perhaps? Evidence of the criminal empire everyone whispered about? A soft cry from the baby monitor clipped to my waist interrupted my thoughts. Lily was awake, hungry again. I hurried back upstairs to the nursery, pushing aside questions about Alessandro's past and my uncertain future. As I settled into the rocking chair to feed Lily, a strange melancholy washed over me. Despite the opulence surrounding us, despite the security and comfort Alessandro provided, something essential was missing: connection, purpose, freedom. I traced my finger over Lily's perfect cheek as she nursed, her eyes half closed in contentment. What are we doing here, little one? I whispered. What does he really want from us? Lily's only answer was to continue nursing, oblivious to the complexities of adult motivations. Later that night, unable to sleep, I ventured downstairs for a glass of water. The house was quiet, the security team invisible but undoubtedly present. As I passed Alessandro's study, a sliver of light beneath the door caught my attention. He was back. I hesitated, then knocked softly. "Come in," his voice called, sounding tired. The study was all dark wood and leather, walls lined with books in multiple languages. Alessandro sat behind a massive desk, his jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. A tumbler of amber liquid sat untouched before him. He looked up, surprise flickering across his features. "Emma, is everything all right? Is Liliana?" "She's fine," I assured him quickly. "Sleeping. I just couldn't rest." Alessandro gestured to a chair across from the desk. "Join me then." I sat, suddenly aware that this was the first time we'd been truly alone together, without guards or staff hovering nearby. In the dim light, the harsh lines of his face seemed softer, the intensity of his gaze muted. "You look tired," I observed, then immediately regretted the familiarity, but Alessandro just gave a slight nod. "It's been a long day." "Business troubles?" I asked hesitantly. A shadow of amusement crossed his face. "Are you asking about my criminal enterprises, Emma?" I flushed. "I don't know what I'm asking." "Yes, you do." He leaned forward slightly. "You want to know who you're living with. What kind of man brings a woman and her newborn into his home with no apparent motive?" "Is there a motive?" I asked directly, my heart pounding. Alessandro was quiet for a long moment, studying me with an intensity that made me want to look away. But I held his gaze, determined to get at least one honest answer. "I told you about my father," he finally said. "What I didn't tell you is that my mother left when I was 8, disappeared one night, leaving nothing but a note saying she couldn't live this life anymore." His voice was flat, emotionless. "My sister was just a baby. I practically raised her while my father built his empire. I absorbed this, trying to see the connection. You think I would abandon Lily? No." His response was immediate, certain. "But I know what it is to be a child whose parent walked away, and I know what it is to step into a role you never asked for. So this is... what? Empathy?" Alessandro's laugh was short, humorless. "I'm not known for empathy, Emma." "Then what?" He stood abruptly, moving to a cabinet where he poured another drink. "When you texted me by mistake, I had just left the cemetery. Yesterday was the anniversary of my sister's death. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I'm sorry. I didn't know." "Why would you?" He took a sip of his drink, his back to me. "She died in childbirth 3 years ago. The baby, too. Her husband couldn't handle the grief, put a bullet in his brain 6 months later." I pressed a hand to my mouth, horror washing through me. "Alessandro, when your message came through, a pregnant woman alone, in trouble, it felt like..." He shook his head, turning to face me. "I'm not a good man, Emma. I've done things that would terrify you. But in that moment, I thought perhaps I could do one good thing. Honor my sister's memory by helping you and your child." The raw pain in his voice stripped away the fearsome image I'd built of him, revealing something profoundly human underneath. I stood and moved toward him, stopping just out of reach. "Thank you for telling me," I said softly. "And for helping us." Alessandro set down his glass, his eyes never leaving mine. "I don't want your gratitude." "What do you want?" I asked, the question barely above a whisper. For a heartbeat, something flared in his gaze, something hungry and fierce that made my pulse quicken. Then it was gone, locked away behind his careful control. "It's late," he said, stepping back. "You should rest while Liliana is sleeping." I nodded, recognizing the dismissal. But as I turned to leave, his voice stopped me at the door. "Emma." When I looked back, his expression was grave. "I meant what I said about keeping you safe. My business, there are dangerous elements, people who would use any perceived weakness against me." "And we're a weakness?" I asked. "You're under my protection. That makes you a target." "Is that why we're kept here like prisoners?" Alessandro's jaw tightened. "Would you prefer I left you vulnerable?" "I'd prefer a choice," I answered honestly. Something like respect flickered in his eyes. "Tomorrow," he said after a moment. "We'll go out tomorrow, you, me, and Liliana. There's a private park near here, secure. You need fresh air, and Liliana should feel the sun." The simple offer of freedom, however limited, made my throat tighten unexpectedly. "Thank you." Alessandro nodded once, then turned away, effectively ending our conversation. But as I climbed the stairs back to my room, I felt something had fundamentally shifted between us. The walls he maintained so carefully had cracked, just enough to glimpse the man behind the fearsome reputation, and what I'd seen was far more complex and far more dangerous to my heart than I could have imagined. True to his word, Alessandro arranged for our outing the following day. The morning dawned crisp and clear, autumn painting the trees in brilliant reds and golds. I dressed Lily in one of the countless outfits filling her closet, a tiny sweater dress with matching tights and a miniature peacoat that made her look like she belonged on a baby fashion runway. I chose a simple cream sweater and jeans for myself, suddenly self-conscious about my still recovering postpartum body. When I came downstairs with Lily nestled in my arms, Alessandro was waiting in the foyer. He wore dark jeans and a charcoal cashmere sweater that transformed him from intimidating crime boss to devastatingly handsome man. The casual attire softened his sharp edges, making him appear almost approachable. His eyes warmed at the sight of Lily. "She looks like a principessa," he said, reaching out to touch her tiny hand. Lily instinctively wrapped her fingers around his index finger, and something in Alessandro's expression shifted, a tenderness appearing that made my heart stutter. "The car is ready," he said after a moment. "I've arranged for a picnic in the garden." Outside, the sleek black SUV waited with two security guards, Marco and Dominic, whose names I'd finally learned, standing at attention. Alessandro helped me secure Lily in her car seat before sliding in beside me. The drive was short, just a few minutes through the exclusive neighborhood before we turned into a gated private park, accessible only to residents of the surrounding estates. The garden, as Alessandro had called it, was actually a stunning botanical sanctuary with winding paths, carefully tended flower beds, and ancient trees providing dappled shade. A secluded area had been prepared for us. A plush blanket spread beneath a maple tree, a wicker hamper waiting, and not another soul in sight. "You arranged all this?" I asked as Alessandro carried Lily while I struggled to manage the diaper bag. "I own the property," he replied casually. "The park is maintained for the neighborhood, but I requested privacy today." Of course he did. Alessandro Russo wouldn't share a park bench with strangers. We settled on the blanket, Alessandro surprising me again by expertly laying Lily on her back between us, making sure the sun didn't reach her delicate skin. He opened the hamper, revealing an assortment of gourmet sandwiches, fresh fruit, pastries, and a bottle of sparkling water. "You're not having wine?" I asked, noticing the absence of his usual drink. A slight smile curved his lips. "I never drink when I'm responsible for Liliana's safety." The statement caught me off guard, his use of "I'm responsible" rather than "you're responsible" or "we're responsible," as if Lily's welfare was as much his concern as mine. We ate in companionable silence for a while, the autumn breeze rustling the leaves above us, Lily contentedly waving her tiny fists at the dappled light filtering through the branches. It felt surreally normal, like we were just a regular family enjoying a weekend outing, not a single mother and a crime lord playing house. "Tell me about your life, Emma," Alessandro said suddenly. "Before." I looked up, surprised by his interest. "There's not much to tell. I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire. My parents died in a car accident during my sophomore year of college. I dropped out, moved to Boston, started waitressing, met Jake. The usual story." "And now the unusual part," Alessandro prompted. I sighed, picking at a grape. "Jake and I dated for 3 years. It was tumultuous. He was charming when he wanted to be, cruel when he didn't get his way. I kept thinking I could fix him, make him happy." I laughed bitterly. Classic mistake. Alessandro's expression darkened. He was abusive. Not physically, I clarified quickly. Emotionally. It was complicated. When I got pregnant, it was an accident. I thought he'd be upset, but he actually seemed excited at first. Started talking about getting married, building a family. I swallowed hard. The memory still painful. Then one day, about 5 months in, he just changed his mind. Said he'd been thinking about it, realized he wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility. He packed his things and left that night. Blocked my number. Alessandro's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking beneath his skin. What's his full name? The question sent a chill through me. Why do you want to know? Curiosity, he replied, his tone deceptively light. Jake Sullivan, I said reluctantly. But whatever you're thinking, don't. He's not worth it. Alessandro said nothing, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. I suddenly remembered who I was talking to. Not just the man who had shown kindness to my daughter, but a man who undoubtedly had the power to make people disappear. Alessandro, promise me you won't do anything to him, I insisted, laying my hand on his arm without thinking. He looked down at my fingers on his sleeve, then back to my face. You're defending the man who abandoned you and his own child? I'm saying I don't want whatever he did or didn't do to result in more pain, I replied. Lily and I have moved on. Have you? His gaze was piercing, seeing too much. I pulled my hand away, uncomfortable with the sudden intensity. We're managing thanks to you. Alessandro seemed about to say more when Lily began to fuss. I lifted her into my arms, cradling her against my shoulder, grateful for the interruption. As I soothed her, I felt Alessandro's eyes on me, watching the way I handled his daughter. His daughter. The thought struck me with sudden force. Is that how he saw her? Was that why her hospital bracelet had borne his name? Why he'd created a perfect nursery before we'd even arrived? Why he looked at her with such tender possessiveness? We should head back, Alessandro said, checking his watch. I have a meeting this afternoon. The spell of normality broken. We packed up and returned to the car. As we drove back to the townhouse, Alessandro received a phone call. He answered in rapid Italian, his tone shifting instantly from the almost gentle man of our picnic to something harder, colder. A reminder of who he really was. Back at the house, Alessandro escorted us to the door but didn't come inside. I'll be late tonight, he said, his expression guarded once more. Don't wait up. I nodded, already turning toward the stairs, Lily growing heavy in my arms. But Alessandro caught my elbow, the touch sending an unexpected jolt through me. Emma. His voice had softened again. Thank you for today. Before I could respond, he was gone, sliding back into the waiting SUV. The house felt emptier without him, despite its size and the discreet presence of security staff. I went through the motions of the evening. Feeding Lily, bathing her in the luxurious infant tub, dressing her in soft pajamas, and rocking her to sleep. But my mind kept returning to the man who had inserted himself so completely into our lives. After putting Lily down for the night, I wandered the house restlessly. 3 weeks of confinement, broken only by today's brief outing, had left me starved for stimulation. I ended up in Alessandro's study, drawn by the rows of books lining the walls. Perhaps reading would quiet my racing thoughts. As I scanned the shelves, my fingers trailed over leather-bound classics, modern thrillers, and several books in Italian. One shelf held framed photographs, rare personal touches in the otherwise impersonal house. I picked up the nearest one, Alessandro, perhaps 10 years younger, with his arm around a beautiful young woman with the same striking blue eyes. His sister, I realized with a pang. The next photo showed the same woman in a wedding dress beside a handsome man who gazed at her adoringly. And then, most painful of all, a sonogram photo in a silver frame, the niece or nephew Alessandro had lost alongside his sister. So much loss. It explained something about him, about the shadows that sometimes crossed his face when he looked at Lily. I was so absorbed in the photographs that I didn't hear the study door open. Alessandro's voice startled me. That was taken 3 months before she died. I turned, guilt washing over me. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been snooping. It's fine. He moved closer, taking the frame from my hands. Her name was Sophia. She was 25 when she died. The doctors said it was a pulmonary embolism. Came out of nowhere during delivery. By the time they realized what was happening, it was too late for both of them. The raw grief in his voice made my chest ache. She was beautiful. She was the best of us, Alessandro said quietly, replacing the photo on the shelf. Kind, gentle. She wanted nothing to do with the family business. Married a university professor, of all people. My father was furious, but she stood her ground. Only person who ever defied him and lived to tell about it. I absorbed this casual reference to his father's violence, a reminder of the world Alessandro inhabited. You miss her. Every day. He moved to the bar cart in the corner, pouring himself a drink. "It's late. Why aren't you asleep?" "Restless, I guess." I hesitated, then added, "Thank you for today. The outing. Lily and I both needed it." Alessandro nodded, taking a sip of his drink. He'd changed since I'd last seen him, back into one of his impeccable suits, but he looked tired, lines of strain visible around his eyes. "Rough meeting?" I asked. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You could say that. Nothing for you to worry about, is it ever?" I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. "We live in your house, eat your food, depend on your protection, but we're kept completely separate from your life." Alessandro set down his glass. "Would you prefer to be involved in my business dealings, Emma? To know exactly how I make the money that keeps you and Liliana in comfort? To meet the kind of men I associate with?" "I'd prefer honesty," I replied. "This arrangement, whatever it is, can't last forever. At some point, Lily and I need to build a real life." Something darkened in his expression. "You're not happy here? That's not the point. We can't stay in this beautiful cage indefinitely." "Why not?" The question was soft, dangerous. I stared at him, caught off guard by the intensity of his gaze. Because it's not real. You're not Lily's father. I'm not my what?" He pressed when I trailed off. I couldn't find the right word. Wife? Partner? Possession? What exactly was I to Alessandro Russo? "This arrangement was meant to be temporary," I finally said. "Until I got back on my feet." Alessandro moved closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne mingled with the scent of whiskey on his breath. "And if I want it to be permanent?" My heart hammered against my ribs. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that in the 3 weeks you've been here, Liliana has become," he paused, seeming to search for the right word, "important to me." "And me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "What am I to you, Alessandro?" His eyes darkened, pupils dilating, a complication I didn't anticipate. Before I could process what that meant, his phone buzzed insistently in his pocket. With a muttered curse, he checked the screen, his expression hardening instantly. "I have to take this," he said, already moving toward the door. "We'll continue this conversation tomorrow." But he paused at the threshold, turning back to me with an expression I couldn't decipher. "For what it's worth, Emma, I haven't thought of this as temporary since the moment you walked through that door." Then he was gone, leaving me alone with racing thoughts and a heart that beat too fast for comfort. What had just happened? Was Alessandro suggesting he wanted us to stay permanently, and in what capacity? As I climbed the stairs back to my room, checking on Lily sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, a terrible realization dawned. Whatever Alessandro's initial motivations, guilt, empathy, some misplaced sense of responsibility, something had shifted. The way he looked at Lily, the fierce protectiveness, his insistence on calling her Liliana Russo. He wasn't just helping us out of charity. He was claiming us as his own, and the most unsettling realization of all, part of me didn't want to fight it. Part of me, traitorously, wanted to belong to Alessandro Russo, dangers and all. I slipped into bed, staring at the ceiling as confusion and longing warred within me. How had I gone from accidentally texting a stranger to contemplating a life with one of the most dangerous men in the city? How had my desperation for security transformed into something that felt dangerously like attraction? And most importantly, what would happen when Alessandro Russo decided he was tired of playing the benevolent protector and showed me the darker side of his nature? The answer came sooner than I expected. I was awakened just after midnight by shouting downstairs, male voices, harsh and urgent. Lily stirred beside me, and I quickly soothed her back to sleep before slipping out of bed. Heart pounding, I crept to the bedroom door and opened it a crack, straining to hear. Alessandro's voice cut through the chaos, his tone glacial with controlled fury. How did they find the location? Someone talked. A voice I recognized as Marco's responded. "We're checking everyone, boss. The leak will be found." "And the shipment?" "Lost. We managed to get our people out before the raid, but the merchandise is gone." Alessandro swore in Italian, the words unfamiliar but their meaning clear from his tone. Double the security here. No one gets within a block of this house without my knowledge. Footsteps approached the stairs, and I hastily shut the door, retreating to bed. But I couldn't fall back asleep, my mind racing with what I'd overheard. A raid. Lost merchandise. The reality of Alessandro's world had suddenly crashed into mine, and the collision left me shaken. Morning came, and with it, an unusual silence. No sounds of Alessandro moving about downstairs, no staff preparing breakfast. When I ventured downstairs with Lily after her morning feeding, I found the kitchen empty, but for a note on the counter in Alessandro's precise handwriting. Stay inside. Security enhanced. Will explain tonight. The day stretched endlessly, tension building with each passing hour. I caught glimpses of unfamiliar men patrolling the perimeter through the windows, their bulges beneath their jackets leaving little doubt they were armed. By evening, my nerves were stretched to breaking point. Alessandro finally returned as night fell, his entrance marked by the efficient murmur of security protocols. When he appeared in the doorway of the living room where I'd been pretending to read while Lily napped in her portable bassinet, the sight of him stole my breath. He looked dangerous. Not the controlled, elegant danger I'd grown accustomed to, but something rawer, more primal. A cut marked his cheekbone, already darkening to a bruise. His knuckles were scraped raw, and though he'd clearly attempted to clean up, a faint smear of what looked disturbingly like blood remained on his white shirt cuff. "You're hurt," I said, rising from the couch. Alessandro waved away my concern. "It's nothing." "What happened?" I demanded, my earlier fear hardening into anger. "I heard shouting last night. Men with guns have been circling this house all day. Lily and I deserve to know if we're in danger." His expression tightened. A business arrangement went badly. Some associates thought they could take advantage of a situation. They've been corrected. The clinical way he described what had clearly been violence made my skin crawl. "Corrected," I repeated. "Is that what you call it when you beat someone bloody?" Alessandro's eyes flashed. "Would you prefer I let them threaten what's mine? Let them think they can move against me with no consequences? What's yours?" I echoed. "Is that what we are to you? Possessions?" He moved closer, his intensity filling the room. "You're under my protection. That makes you my responsibility. We never asked for this." I gestured wildly at our surroundings. "This gilded cage, this dangerous life. I texted you by mistake." "And yet here you are," he countered, his voice dropping dangerously. "Accepting my hospitality, my protection, my—" "What choice did I have?" I interrupted, my voice cracking. I was desperate. Alone. But I'm not so desperate now that I'll risk my daughter's safety. Alessandro went very still. "You think Liliana isn't safe with me?" "I think your world is violent and dangerous," I replied. "I heard enough last night to know that. Raids, lost merchandise, people talking who shouldn't. What happens when your enemies decide to target the woman and baby living in your house? No one would dare," he growled. "Really?" "Because it sounds like someone already dared to cross you." A muscle ticked in Alessandro's jaw. "That situation has been handled." The coldness in his voice sent a chill through me. I'd been living in a fantasy these past weeks, seeing only the man who cradled my daughter with gentle hands and arranged picnics in private gardens. But this was the real Alessandro Russo, a man who handled situations with his fists, who inspired fear in hardened criminals, whose business involved raids and shipments and violence. "I think we should leave," I said quietly. Alessandro's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes darkened. "Where would you go?" "I don't know yet, but somewhere normal, somewhere safe." "There is nowhere safer than with me," he insisted, moving closer until he stood directly before me. "Do you think the world out there is kinder than I am? That you won't face dangers on your own?" "Normal dangers," I countered. "Not the kind that come with bulletproof windows and armed guards." His hands came up to frame my face, the gentleness of the touch at odds with the intensity of his gaze. "Emma, listen to me. What happened last night was an isolated incident, a necessary reminder to certain parties that I protect what's mine. It won't happen again." "You can't promise that," I whispered. "I can," he insisted. "And I do." We stood like that for a long moment, his hands warm against my skin, his eyes holding mine. Despite everything, despite the fear and uncertainty churning inside me, I felt the pull between us, the undeniable attraction that had been building since the first moment he walked into my hospital room. "I don't know if I can do this," I admitted. "Live in your world. Then let me live in yours," he replied, his voice softening. "Tell me what you need to feel secure, to feel free. I'll make it happen. It's not that simple. It can be." His thumb traced the curve of my cheek. "Let me show you." The moment hung between us, charged with possibility. Then Lily's cry shattered the tension, and I stepped back, Alessandro's hands falling away as I turned toward my daughter. "She needs to be fed," I said, my voice unsteady. Alessandro nodded, a flash of disappointment crossing his features before his usual mask slipped back into place. "We'll continue this discussion later." But as I lifted Lily from her bassinet, soothing her hungry cries, I knew the conversation had reached a crucial juncture. I had to decide: stay and accept Alessandro Russo, danger and all, or leave and face the world alone with my daughter. The answer came to me as I rocked Lily that night, watching her perfect face in the dim glow of the nightlight. I couldn't expose her to this world of violence and criminality, no matter how protected Alessandro promised we would be. She deserved better, deserved normalcy, safety, a father figure who didn't come home with bloodied knuckles. By morning, I'd made my decision. I packed a small bag with essentials for Lily and the few possessions I'd arrived with, the fancy clothes, the designer baby outfits, those I left behind. They weren't really mine anyway. I waited until Alessandro left for a meeting, then approached Marco, who'd become the most familiar of the security team. "I need to go shopping for Lily," I said, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. "She's outgrowing her clothes." Marco looked uncertain. "Mr. Russo didn't mention any outings today." "It was a last-minute decision," I replied, forcing a casual smile. "He said to take me to the baby boutique on Newbury Street." Perhaps it was the confidence in my voice, or perhaps Marco simply couldn't imagine I would lie about something Alessandro could easily verify. Whatever the reason, he nodded. "I'll bring the car around." 20 minutes later, we pulled up outside an exclusive children's store. "I'll come with you," Marco said, moving to open my door. "That's not necessary," I countered quickly. "Lily gets fussy around too many people. We'll only be a few minutes. I know exactly what I need." Again, that moment of hesitation, then a reluctant nod. 15 minutes. Then I come looking for you. It was enough. The moment we entered the store, I headed straight for the back, where I'd spotted a staff exit during our previous shopping trip. With Lily secured against my chest in her carrier, the diaper bag slung over my shoulder, I slipped through the door into a service alley. My heart pounded as I hurried away from the store, expecting at any moment to hear Marco's shout or feel his hand on my shoulder. But the streets grew busier as I reached the main thoroughfare, and I blended into the midday crowd. At the nearest subway station, I paused at an ATM, withdrawing the maximum amount from the account Alessandro had set up for me. $500. It wouldn't last long, but it was a start. Then I descended into the station, boarded the first train that arrived, and watched the city that had briefly been my gilded prison fade into the distance. I had no plan beyond escape, no destination in mind. But as the train carried us farther from Alessandro's world, I felt both terrified and strangely liberated. Whatever came next would be my choice, my responsibility. No more dependency, no more uncertainty about motives or expectations. 3 stops later, my phone buzzed. Marco, undoubtedly, realizing I'd fled. I turned the device off and dropped it into a trash can at the next station. Alessandro could track it, use it to find us. By evening, Lily and I had checked into a modest motel on the outskirts of the city, paid for in cash. As night fell, I sat on the edge of the bed, watching my daughter sleep, doubt creeping in with the darkness. Had I made a terrible mistake? Traded safety and security for freedom that might prove more dangerous in the end? I was still questioning my decision when a soft knock sounded at the door. My blood froze. How had he found us so quickly? With trembling hands, I approached the door, peering through the peephole. Alessandro stood in the dim hallway, alone, no security team visible. "Emma?" he called softly. "Open the door, please." I should have remained silent, pretended we weren't there. but something in his voice, a vulnerability I'd never heard before, made my hand move to the lock. When I opened the door, the man before me looked nothing like the powerful crime boss I'd come to know. He looked tired, worried, his usual perfect composure fractured. "How did you find us?" I whispered. "Did you think I wouldn't?" he replied, his voice equally soft. "That I would let you and Liliana disappear without a trace? You can't stop us from leaving," I said. Though my resolve was already weakening, Alessandro's eyes held mine. "I'm not here to stop you. I'm here to tell you that whatever you decide, wherever you go, my protection goes with you. You want freedom? I'll give it to you. A home of your own, financial security, distance from my business, whatever you need." "Why?" I demanded. "Why go to such lengths for us?" "Because in the weeks you've been in my life, you've become essential to it," he replied simply. "You and Liliana. Your business can be managed differently," he interrupted. "Legitimized. It was already in progress before you came into my life. For Sophia initially, now for you. For Liliana." I stared at him, trying to read the truth in his eyes. "People don't just walk away from your world." "I'm not walking away," he clarified. "I'm evolving it, building something that can exist in the light." "And us?" I whispered. "What would we be to you?" Alessandro reached out, his fingers brushing mine hesitantly. "Family, if you'll have me.